Story 1. He cheated on me 2 times, as far as I'm aware. The first time, I forgave him, but then 3 months later, I couldn't help noticing him receiving Snapchat messages from a girl. When he went to the shower one day and forgot to take his phone, I opened the message. It literally said, "What time does your girlfriend go to work? I'm almost done at the gym now." That said more than enough for me. Story 2. Sometimes, it's not about love fading. It's about realizing you're on different paths. I cared, but we just didn't want the same future. The hardest part was letting go of the idea of who you thought you were meant to be with. Story 3. She wanted to move out but stay together. The space allowed me to realize exactly how abusive she was, and I will be eternally grateful for that. I would have killed myself eventually. Sometimes when she finds a new way to contact me that I haven't blocked yet, I really want to say what I just said. But I'm wise enough to know that no contact is best. Story 4. I left because I realized I was putting in all the effort and was not getting the same energy back. I deserved someone who actually made me feel valued, you know? It was hard at first, but honestly, it was the best thing for me in the long run. Story 5. I woke up one morning and realized, holy shit, I'm living in an abusive relationship. As a man, I never thought it would happen to me. It didn't even seem conceivable. It's been 9 years. I can't believe how happy I've been as a single man. Story 6. I couldn't heal in a place that was making me sick. My health and my mental health were awful, and being with her made it so much worse. She didn't understand how sick I was really becoming. Story 7. I changed drastically as a person for my own health and safety, and he couldn't handle that. He wanted everything to stay as it was before, even when it was seriously hurting me. Story 8. With the help of his sister, our shared psychiatrist, and my new therapist, after 17 years, I finally could take the rose-colored glasses off and see him for who he really is. I believed and trusted him more than I believed and trusted myself. But he is a good narcissist, and I think very few people see it. Our mutual friends believe him, but his sister and I see him. I see you. Story 9. He wanted to try polyamory, but I did not. The relationship was not stable enough to open up, and I was in poor mental health because of it. So he tried polyamory and I filed for divorce. He was also abusive. Story 10. The person ended up being addicted to so many things and would lie and hide more than I ever knew during the relationship. I can't help someone who doesn't want it or even admit it. Story 11. I had stayed far too long already. Then she went and spent the night with her friends. I didn't want to leave because I loved her kids, and they called me dad. She was a single mom, and even though we hit it off at first, she slowly showed how cold and impulsive she truly was. She had trauma in the past, and I thought if I loved her enough, I could give her and the kids the life they deserved. After a year with things only getting progressively worse and almost for sure infidelity, I knew no matter what I did, I couldn't be their dad and fix their lives, and I decided that I couldn't pretend to anymore either. She ended up losing her kids not long after. I heard that they are in a loving, well-adjusted home now, though. Story 12. He broke up with me and died less than 4 months later. It was this relationship where I decided that I did not choose very well and have been pretty happy alone. Story 13. He didn't have time for me. He preferred the company of his friends, and I didn't want to try to force him away from them or anything, since they make him happy. Seeing a partner only once a week, if that, when they're completely silent over text and chat is excruciating to me. Story 14. Too controlling. We weren't living together, and she would make ultimatums on what foods I was allowed to stock in my cabinets. I'm a 125-pound male who eats a lot to maintain my weight, which involves empty calories from junk food. She wanted all the junk gone. Story 15. I was living overseas and got a call from my mom back home that she had stage 4 lung cancer. She had been completely healthy and never smoked. So I moved home immediately to be with her and help, which ended my relationship. Story 16. The amount of effort I was putting in was not worth the minimal effort I was receiving in return. I was constantly forced to choose whatever activities we would do when we spent time together, not to mention paying. I cooked for her every weekend, whereas she cooked for me 5 times during our year-long relationship. I opened my house to her family when they were visiting and let her borrow my car for 2 weeks because hers got repossessed. Towards the end of the relationship, it truly felt like I was throwing money away. I broke up with her shortly after Christmas. She had gotten me a $15 cologne while I had planned to pay for a weekend getaway at a mountain resort a few hours from our city. Thankfully, I stopped myself from making the reservations, and after opening my gift on Christmas, I just told her that her gift would be arriving shortly. I then ended the relationship a few days later and bought myself a nice rowing machine instead. Story 17. I realized that I wasn't done with living the single life. Spoiler. I was single for 2 weeks before I met my now husband, and now I haven't been single for 11 years. Story 18. She dumped her word me on her birthday at Casa Bonita last August. She wasn't ready for a serious relationship. Oddly enough, neither was I. Yes, this sounds like high school. We are grown adults, and she turned it into a teen soap opera. Story 19. She was very spiteful and petty, not just with me but with my family as well. She always played the victim card, and I felt like I was always in the wrong until I realized I was just delusional and brainwashed. She also had a dog that I was taking care of under my roof because she bought him, knowing full well she couldn't keep him due to her landlord's rules. I paid for all his shots and food. Fast forward, she invades my privacy one day. We are broken up at this point, and let's just say it escalated to her taking away the dog. Legally speaking, I couldn't do anything about it since she owned him on paper. All I and my family ever did was give. She always took something away. Wasted 5 years. Story 20. She fell for a coworker of hers and ended up breaking up with me over text while I was at work. She said she didn't love anyone else at the time, but it turns out they ended up getting together a week after the breakup. It hurt at the time, but it was so helpful in my personal growth. You can either be bitter or better. Story 21. I broke up with her and made her leave my house because I couldn't take another second of the chaos that came with being in a relationship with her. I saw the red flags soon after we decided it was a good idea to live together, and it was a downward spiral right up until the bitter end. I'm thankful I made it out of that one unscathed, but I definitely got some emotional bruises from it. I swore off dating after her and met my wife randomly about a month later. Story 22. She had an avoidant attachment personality. I had to chase her a lot, and she didn't text or call me often outside of our date nights. We talked every 2 to 5 days between dates, and there was nothing in between. Keep in mind, we lived only 5 minutes from each other. Story 23. Because he wanted to get married to me after not even a month of dating. He asked me 3 times in a month. The second time, I told him if he asked me one more time before we were together for at least a year, I would break up with him. He asked a third time. Story 24. I was unhappy for a long while but endured because we had a child together. But one day we were arguing, and he called me a cunt while I was holding our son. The realization that this would be a regular occurrence broke me. Story 25. I'm pretty sure he was in the closet. He practically worshipped his male friends in an unhealthy and borderline creepy way. He was always vying for their approval and attention. He was hypermasculine but incredibly insecure. Absolutely abysmal at sex. Blamed his erectile dysfunction on shy bladder syndrome, but from the way he tried performing in bed, I think it was porn addiction. He was Christian, I'm not. He was emotionally distant and yelled at me on my birthday. Started to get violent, so I dumped him. Story 26. Was a narcissist and had manic episodes, stopped taking his medication, and didn't believe when I was concerned for him and hallucinated me cheating on him. When he was cheating on me, threatened me with self-harm when I said we should take a break because his mental health was declining and making me exhausted. Eventually, my mom found out and she forced me to break up with him by taking my phone so I would have no contact with him. So grateful that she did. Story 27. I found his recently updated profile on Match.com. It showed up in my Facebook, I think, since it's been a few years now, as someone who might be a possible match to me. We had met on Match.com. Apparently, he never stopped browsing the site over the 2 years that we were together. Story 28. Same values, same goal, studying medicine and then family, but absolutely no idea why she left. Probably she wants someone to provide for her. I told her we could go to my family's home. Everyone has their room and we could go through this together. She didn't want that though. I'll be 33 when I start, and she will be 32 next year when she can start. Everything seemed extremely well matched. Yet she left. Story 29. She cheated and then left. While we were separated, I decided I wanted to take matters into my own hands, and I filed for divorce. Never looked back. No kids or major assets, so it was an easy process and I couldn't be happier. Story 30. He told me it was inappropriate for me to ask to leave his social situation. He was very drunk in a corner not talking to anyone and was upset I told him I would like him to leave in an Uber with me. That was just icing on the cake. Story 31. Bro is gaslighting me. He was flirting with girls. Oh God, even with lesbians who were hitting on me before. And then he said they started at first, and anyway, they were just talking and I was overreacting. After that, we dated for another 3 years, 5 years in total. And this wasn't even one of his biggest red flags. Story 32. I would not call it a relationship, but we went on 3 dates, and man, he brought the worst out of me. He made me so angry. He would manipulate and bait, and I am not a yeller, and he made me yell once. So yeah, no more dates. Then I met my husband. Story 33. After a total of 13 years together, he was still complaining about the same things without making any initiative to change. Anytime he expressed a new interest, I tried to be supportive or remove barriers for him, but no, he would never talk about sex. It sounds beyond weird, I know, but sometimes talking with him about anything was like dropping pebbles into a well and straining to hear the splash. Unless it was surface-level customer service stuff. Story 34. She was a narcissist and stopped me from doing anything, making me so unwell. I had to leave. I had to get away. It was the best thing I ever did. However, we have a child, so I still have to see her, but it's amicable now to a degree. He gets my whole attention still. Story 35. Slowly came to the realization that she probably never liked me. All she ever wanted to do was talk about herself and her problems. She never once asked how I was doing or really anything about me. Story 36. I was being emotionally abused, controlled, and manipulated, and I was threatened with physical abuse as well. No form of birth control was allowed, as in nothing. It's because of this and religion, which she used against me, that our sex life was rather lackluster. I had to propose within 6 months of dating and marry within a year. After marriage, she was to be in control of the finances so she could see if I was cheating. I've never cheated on her or anyone else. I was constantly being criticized over small things. For example, I'd look both ways before exiting an aisle at the supermarket. Apparently, this is stupid. I was constantly accused of looking at other people I wasn't. I wasn't allowed to follow other females on social media, not even talking Instagram models, just other photographers. I was expected to move out of my mom's house after 2 weeks of dating to my own place, albeit I wasn't allowed to fart in my sleep. Everything was always a lecture, and she'd yell at me just about every other day, maybe twice a week if I was lucky. Zero accountability. Some other things I don't feel comfortable sharing. I probably repressed most of it, but yeah, there was quite a bit. I never raised my voice and made concessions all the time. Treated her as best as I knew how. Took her on lots of trips, paid for meals, etc. I had to leave. I knew my future wasn't with her. I just wanted to find the person I'd start a family with. I'm okay, just trying to find my person now. It isn't easy out there. Story 37. I could barely interact with another woman without her insecurities kicking in. Constant arguing and tears, lying to try and justify her arguments. She was pushing you and telling you to leave. Clearly, you were too drunk to remember. Never again. Story 38. I sank into a deep depression after my son was born. 3 months later, my dad died. 2 weeks after that, I lost my job. I chose to be a stay-at-home dad so she could get some work experience. I was shut down emotionally, and communication was never her strength, and I was blind to her pulling away. Before I knew it, she was never home. Walking in at 7 a.m., sneaking through my phone to see if I was cheating but not letting me see hers. It was the messiest breakup of my life, and the last. Story 39. A lack of intimacy and connection led to resentment on my side and then eventually her side. The final argument made it clear respect was no longer present the way it had been for the previous 4 years, and contempt had taken its place. Story 40. Everything in his life was a crisis, and I was constantly having to take care of his emotional needs, but none of my needs were being met. After a while, I just became resentful and burnt out, and I couldn't do it anymore. Story 41. He totally broke me. Cheated on me a second time, I know, and I never give exes second chances. He really fought for me, so I thought this was different. But no. I will always believe once a cheater, always a cheater now thanks to him. It's been really hard trusting again, even in friendships and family. I gained a lot of weight through the heartbreak, depression, and anxiety, and I'm nervous I won't find love again. I don't feel good enough. Not to sound dramatic, but that on top of a few other difficulties in my life and what's happening in America right now, it feels like an uphill battle every day. But thanks for listening, I feel better. Story 42. It wasn't worth fighting to stay in a relationship with someone who chose their alone time over me. She didn't put effort into our relationship, and she didn't change at all when I talked to her about it.